chapter in the Unbreakable trilogy, or what M. Night Shyamalan has unofficially dubbed the Eastrail 177 trilogy. Glass is basically a sequel to Split. It follows both Unbreakable and Split, and David Dunn comes into confrontation with James McAvoy's character from Split, Kevin Wendell Crumb, and after their confrontation they are both put in a psychiatric ward, where David Dunn, played by Bruce Willis, sees that his former enemy, Elijah Price, played by Samuel L. Jackson, is being held there, and Price has this giant plan for both of them. He wants to carry out his plan so that these two can show off to the world. M. Night Shyamalan has had a very varied career. Unbreakable, Signs, The Sixth Sense. His first three movies are basically the movies that people think are his three best. And a lot of people really do like Split. I am more on the fence with Split. I think it's a watchable, entertaining movie that's just fine. I don't really think there's anything special about Split. I think it's a really kind of a slow burn movie. Unbreakable is too, but I think Unbreakable moves at a better pace than Split does. So I've always been on the fence with Split as to whether or not I love it or I sort of dislike it. I do like Split. I don't love Split, but there is that middle section of Shyamalan's career, The Happening, Lady in the Water, The Village, that thing that should never be talked about, where he's kind of almost become a fool of himself. And he's just kind of full of himself. And with Split, I will admit, he did a course correction. And so everybody was really looking forward to Glass, and I gotta say, the first 20 minutes of Glass had me hooked. Shyamalan does a really great job of building up the suspense and crafting the suspense in a way that isn't really crafted in a superhero film. This is a very unique, original superhero film, and I give Shyamalan credit for that. But after those first 15 to 20 minutes go by the wayside, the movie just falls apart for me. The second act of this movie is super friggin' boring. Most of the scenes involve people just sitting around and talking. There's that scene in the trailer where the doctor, played by Sarah Paulson, is interviewing all three of them in the same room. That scene goes on for about 7 minutes in the movie, and it's boring. Nothing happens in the middle of this movie. There is nothing of importance that happens. It's just Shyamalan trying to beat you over the head again and again, repeatedly, with the theme that this movie is trying to get across. Whether or not these people are actually superheroes, whether or not the world deserves superheroes, whether or not it's just being normal makes you a superhero. It's those themes that really are just hammered down so much, and you're just beaten over the head with them, where it just kind of becomes an annoyance after a while, and these scenes are just so long and drawn out that the movie was really straining my attention after a while. After a while, I just really lost interest. Once Samuel L. Jackson announces his plan, I'm like, okay, that's cool, but then there's this plot twist that happens. I'll get into more of that in a minute, and that kind of killed the movie for me, despite starting to get disinterested in the second act of this movie. There are other things to like in Glass. For instance, James McAvoy's performance is by far the best part. This is his best role to date. I love him as Professor X, but anytime I see him on screen in Split or Unbreakable, and he's breaking out all those different personalities, he really kills it. He does a really good job, and Shyamalan does a really good job matching colors. David Dunn who's Bruce Willis, he's more associated with the color green. Elijah Price, Samuel L. Jackson, is more associated with the color purple. And Kevin Wendell Crumb, James McAvoy, is more associated with lighter, kind of like yellow, peach skin colors. And I like how each of their counterparts, David Dunn's son, Elijah Price's mother, and Casey Cook from Split, played by Anya Taylor-Joy, each represent these colors. For instance, you have David Dunn's son wearing green a lot, You have Elijah Price's mother wearing purple, and you have Casey wearing colors that match what Kevin Wendell Crumb wears. And I thought that was a really cool connection that Shyamalan did. Other than that, this is really a movie where I was thoroughly disappointed. The character of David Dunn is barely in the movie. Bruce Willis doesn't really have a moment to shine. He's really thrown into the background of this movie. You can definitely tell that Shyamalan just wanted to make a straightforward sequel to Split. It's either that or he just didn't know how to balance the characters from Unbreakable with the characters from Split. He should have just made a sequel to either Unbreakable or Split. He shouldn't have made this a trilogy. It's kind of like the Batman vs. Superman syndrome. What did Zack Snyder do with Batman and Superman and Batman vs. Superman? You can tell Zack Snyder in that movie wanted to make a Batman movie. Batman has about 80% of the screen time. Superman is barely in that movie. It's the same thing with the characters in this movie. McAvoy is clearly at the forefront in this movie. And Elijah Price is in a good chunk of the movie, but David Dunn is just left to the sidelines. Bruce Willis doesn't have anything really to do in this movie. It's all mostly Kevin Wendell Crumb. And I feel like Shyamalan either just wanted to make a sequel to Split, or kind of make a sequel to Unbreakable, but kind of disregard the David Dunn character, which is what he did. And he didn't really know how to balance the two out. That's how I felt Shyamalan approached this movie. Also, Shyamalan is known for plot twists. And this is where I feel as if throughout his career, Shyamalan gets a little too full of himself. He gets all these ideas that exit his head and make it onto paper. Sometimes ideas are just better off being ideas. And the plot twist in this is better off just being an idea. It's something that should have just been left on the cutting room floor. It's something that is so out of left field and so unnecessary and feels so unsatisfying that in the final confrontation, which is great, by the way, when this is revealed, you just feel like it's kind of a cop-out. You're just kind of sitting there and be like, oh, yeah, oh, that just got revealed. I don't really like that. The ending and the plot twist for this movie are going to be the things that are talked about the most with Glass. And I can see why, because it's definitely going to cause some people to be divided. Just like they were with The Village, which has gotten more respect in recent years. But when it comes to twists like this, the fact that this twist is so out of left field and feels just so unnecessary and isn't satisfying is one problem with this twist. But another problem I have with this twist is the fact that Shyamalan should know that we see a twist coming. Why doesn't he change up his formula a little bit? It's like what Zack Snyder does with all his movies. We know Zack Snyder's formula to heart by now. It's all style, no substance. We all know that Zack Snyder focuses more on visuals rather than story and character. Why doesn't Shyamalan focus more on trying to make a straightforward movie rather than adding all these different plot twists in? I feel like he would be more respected as a filmmaker if that happened. They're in mostly all of his movies, and a lot of them just don't have that great of a payoff, especially movies like The Happening, Lady in the Water, and that to me is just telling me that Shyamalan is full of himself. He's really explaining to the audience, like, okay, you're expecting a twist, this is what you're expecting to happen, but I'm going to go a step farther and do it in a way that I know is best for my movie, and that you won't see coming because I'm a lot smarter than you. That's the way I feel as if Shyamalan comes across in a lot of his movies, and in his behind-the-scenes interviews and all that. He even went as far as to saying that his movies don't have plot twists, they're more just story elements that connect with the audience on a spiritual and emotional resonance. They're plot twists. I disagree with that statement completely. They're plot twists. And I would love to see Shyamalan do something more straightforward, rather than adding every plot twist that he can think of into all of his movies, because it's getting old. Glass is a movie that I feel as if could have been a lot better. It needed to balance out its characters a lot more. The middle section contains nothing of importance. It's all just exposition and people talking about stuff. It's like in The Phantom Menace, when the Jedi find out that there's this new Sith menace that's alive and present. They just sit around and do nothing. That's how I feel the middle of this movie plays out. I feel as if you take the middle of this movie out and replace it with something else. I'm okay with the characters being in a psychiatric ward, but maybe replace it with something else, something a little more important. You would have a more cohesive story, and maybe that plot twist might be satisfying. Why didn't he focus a little bit more on that, or hint more at that? That's another problem with this plot twist, is it's never really hinted at. As I said, it comes out of left field, and I feel like that's going to bring the movie down. The fact that David Dunn's barely in it, there's really, other than Elijah Price, no connections to Unbreakable. It's more of a split sequel than it is an Unbreakable sequel. And the plot twist just feels out of left field. It's really going to divide a lot of people. I do like aspects of the movie. Like I said, the first 20 minutes, I think Shyamalan does a really good job building suspense and crafting that suspense. James McAvoy gives a really great performance. Samuel L. Jackson gives a really great performance. I love the color usage in this movie, and the last confrontation between these characters, I think, is handled really well. But everything else in the movie, I think, could have been handled a lot better. I don't know what I'm going to give this movie. If it's going to be a C or a C-. I need a little bit more time to think. I'm leaning more towards a C-, but there's a gut feeling in my stomach telling me to go with a C. That's why I can't give it a C or a C-. I don't know. It just... This wasn't... Split was more of what I expected from Shyamalan. I didn't think it was a full comeback for Shyamalan, but this movie really proved that that short comeback was short-lived. And it really, in this movie, kind of really just proves to me that Shyamalan doesn't really care about the audience. He's just kind of full of himself. This movie really kind of tells me that there's stuff, ideas that Shyamalan has that should always be left on the cutting room floor. And he's a person that doesn't realize that, because it's to me as if he thinks the audience isn't that smart. And we are. Guys, thank you for watching my review of Glass. I hope you guys really enjoy it. If you do see this movie, definitely form your own opinion. This is a very divisive movie, but form your own opinion. This is just my opinion. You can find more reviews from me at the end of this video. I will leave the link to my website in the description below. There you can subscribe to this channel, as well as find links to my other social media accounts. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. Catch ya on the flip side.